looking at your figures, the 20 the balance brought forward for administration cost, you are indicating from 2022 you carried forward almost everything. I've just calculated that the balance brought forward for 2022, considering that the administration component was it was actually 1.2 million kwacha. So this shows you have carried forward everything for 2022 to 2023. You have not proven and you haven't given any evidence as to whether how practical is it that the whole 2022 you never spent administration cost on CDF related activities. Then you have explained on the table below on page 2. The first one, grants empowerment, the 40%. You are saying the action taken. In this regard, the council disbursed the grants amounting to 1,910,000 kwacha against the budgeted allocation ceiling of 1,953,200 and not against the actual funding of 1,804,000 kwacha 233. So pay attention to this statement from your side. You're saying that from the point of view of budgetary performance, the council recorded a favorable variance of 32,143 kwacha 45 ingwe. However, if expenditure is weighed against the actual funding, the result is adverse variance 105,766 kwacha. In this regard, the overall performance of the grants component of the 2022 and 2023 CDF allocation is adverse if the actual funding criteria is used. So, based on this statement, I want to ask, what is the standard measure in public finance management for budget performance of any expenditure item in CDF? Because the first explanation, you're giving a hypothesis to say if you use this criteria, we are adverse. If you use this criteria, we are favorable. So what is in finance, what is the standard criteria, standard measure of performance, budget performance of any sector of the CDF budgeting? Thank you.
Thank you. Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. I may attempt to respond, and then I'll pass on the question to the DF also to add. Chair, on this issue, I think it's one of those matters that I observed when I joined the council, and I advised that CDF has got components which is well guided, and if we are allocating to beneficiaries, we are supposed to stick to the ceiling. We shouldn't go beyond the 5% which has been guided through the guidelines. So going forward, Chair, I think we started following the same guidelines, and if we talk about 2024, we've not spent more than what has been guided, the ceiling, the component.
When did you learn about these ceilings?
Chair, it was in 2022 when we learned about that. Yes.
Through
the guidelines that were issued by the ministry as well as the act. So it is something that we noticed, that whenever allocations were being made.
But you were assigning?
Yes, Chair. That's why I'm saying that going forward, that has
Which forward we are asking? Why were you doing? What will stop you continue doing what you... It's a cultural thing. It is. You are given guidelines. Sorry, Town Clerk. It's so painful for us and the people of Zambia. You are given guidelines. Do not go beyond this. The ceiling for administrative component cost is this. You is what my brother said, Chintove. You can get anything overspending these votes. Then you come and tell this committee going forward, we are going. You are the same people. What will stop you from doing the same thing that you have been doing? Maybe that is the question we need to answer. What will stop you now for you signing and accepting those things that you are doing wrong?
Chair, I've made it clear to the finance department that we are supposed to do, they are supposed to make sure that reports
Have you charged the finance director?
Yes, Chair, I've written to him to ensure that we don't
Have you charged him for financial mismanagement?
Chair, I've reminded him through a
Sorry,
letter.
the question is disciplinary. Because these people, the government has told you, don't do this. You are an accomplice in this also. Because you also sign. It's not true that you, who is called a town clerk, who should have all the information and checking whether things are going correctly, unless you are part of this. Have you ever charged your director of finance for disciplinary, for financial mismanagement, or going against financial regulation? Have you?
Chair, I've cautioned him. Should the situation continue, it will leave me with no option but to,
at which point would
him.
you say that now we are, so you have caused the damage, but let us not go more than this level? That's what you are saying. You are causing damage. So that's why I always say that maybe here we are serious, but you are not. The painful thing about it, the area members of parliament only end at approvals of the CDF projects. The Minister of Law Government only ends at giving guidelines. The President only ends at ensuring that this money is released. Now, the whole mess now, it is in the hands of the officers, who will never be cautioned. They're just transferred. Maybe that you are being cautioned. I have never seen. You're just being transferred from one place to another. No, we did this in 2022, but we want it going forward. Which forward? Are we going forward when you are messing up things? So, you are the same people. According to a serious organization, someone who is doing something wrong, first before even you charge, you caution. I've seen this payment. How far have we gone in terms of the ceilings or allocations? Are we spending within? When you say that there is a lapse, you caution. Director of Finance, I've noticed that this is what you are doing. This I will not accept, and I will not sign myself. Why have you overspent? You're right. Next, Director of Finance, you seem to be a problem. Can you show cause as to why disciplinary action cannot be taken against you? Copy the commission. You want the commission to come and start charging individuals, directors. Why are you there as a chief executive officer? But because you are part of the loot, you allow this. No, we have cautioned. I have guided. What guidance are you giving? These things border on serious financial crimes. Where you pay a school, overpay them when they are not eligible to get that money. It is okay in the local government. No, that shall not continue. Next question, Dr. Mwanza.
I'll just give a synopsis of the performance on projects because of time.
Because of time, yeah. We want, it's a real mess, so we shall give
yes.
synopsis.
If we go to the performance of MBALA Town Council on community projects in page 32, is very clear. Hmm? No. Sorry.
Starting from page 20.
Sorry. Where is it? I wrote
Page 30, I mean.
Page 30, I think. Yes. Yeah. So, yes, page 30. For the 2022 community projects, the number of projects that were brought forward to 2023 were 33 projects. Immediately you see such a number of projects in a financial year, then you know you're attracting problems. So, in 2022, there was no community project that was implemented. All these projects, 33 projects were 28 were implemented in 2023. Work in progress is 4, outstanding is 1, which of course I dispute, more especially on work in progress. They are not 4, because when you look at those that were even just sampled, queried, and they are even going up to 2025, they are more than 4. I can mention them here.
Mention them. So that they know.
1 by 2 classroom block at Chasafa Primary School, 1 by 2 classroom block at Ilumi Primary School, 1 by 4 classroom block at Kakungu, 1 by 2 classroom block at Kakonde, and 1 by 3 classroom block at MBALA.
Fine.
Including the road, the 4.6 kilometer road. So, now if you go to page 31, 2023 community projects, out of the whole year's allocation of 2023, that was almost 28.6 million kwacha that government gave us. And from the 2023 community projects that were approved, there were 22 of them. And during the year under review, only 1 project was implemented.
Town clerk, are you there? Maybe we want to draw your attention. Doc, just a minute, your mic. Are you moving with us?
Yes,
that
Chair.
in 2023, 22 projects were approved. Only 1 was implemented. Are you seeing the report?
Yes, Chair.
Continue, Doc.
Okay, so only 1 was implemented. So as we got into 2024, you only implemented 1 project out of 22 projects that are approved by PLGO. And work that is in progress, only 2 projects. Then the outstanding is 19. The reasons for these projects to be outstanding is you're talking of lengthy procurement processes, as well as delayed funding and so on. One wonders because the funds by end of 2023 or the 2023 budget is funded. So how would you talk about those reasons? I just give an example of contract management, the flaws in contract management. One example I'll give is overspending on a project. Then the other one is about underfunding that project. So page 3, Chisafa Primary School. This project, Chair, is a 1 by 2 classroom block at Chisafa Primary School, whose contract period was 22 weeks and signed on 19th December 2022. The scope of works included substructure, but from the scope of work, and when I look at the pictures and the amount of money, I take it that there was already a structure that was existing, so you could have maybe gone for superstructure. I'm not so sure, because the scope of works included substructure, block work, roofing, carpentry and joinery, and so on. and the contract price was 622,933 kwacha for 5 months to construct a 1x2 classroom block, which the indices, the parameters look normal. They look okay in terms of the costing as well as the construction period. But the contractor is called Cetraco Limited, and Cetraco Limited, by the time of audit, was already paid 80% of the funds. And whilst the contractor was paid 80%, there were still a lot of works that were still outstanding. And then the contract was terminated. What we are not sure is whether the contract was is still, whether the initial contractor is continuing the contract or not. But the contract was terminated just simply because of not completing the project on time. So now the third party of it is that this contract that was allocated 622,000 kwacha, which I believe is normal for a 1x2 classroom block.
Yes, yes.
Council had to seek additional funding. The reasoning is on page 4. They had to look, management wishes to report that council made an assessment of the cost of correcting the defects and completing the school's ablution block. In this regard, the assessment carried out showed that the project required 697,026 kwacha to have the stated works done by a new contractor, and the same as was recommended to the PLGO for approval on 17th March 2025, just before coming for this meeting, Chair, which the project which was which commenced in December 2022. So up to now, right now, as we're talking, after the deliberations of CDF at its meeting of 10th March 2025. So the status is that they have sourced for 697,000 kwacha and 26, in addition to what was already allocated from the initial contract. The justification for this amount, which is above actually the initial contract price. The initial contract price was just 622, which the contractor, by signing the contract, he stated that he would complete all the works within this amount. But now the contract is terminated, and then you seek additional funding amounting to 697,026 kwacha. Right now, the project, because the funding was just it was just approved on 10th March, so I'm sure it is under EGP or something like that.
Doc,
But
let's give him a chance to respond.
The question is, what instigated the sharp increase in the additional funding to be twice the initial funding? The project was funded at 622,000. It's just a 1x2 classroom block. Then you terminate the contract and seek additional funding of close to 700,000 kwacha. You paid the initial contractor 80%. What new items that made the price to jump twice? Because at 700,000 kwacha, it means that the initial contractors' rates, the unit rates, are multiplied by 2 for you to arrive at 700,000 kwacha.
Town clerk, let's hear from her. Town clerk, please help us.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The project of construction of 1x2 classroom block at Chisafwa also included an ablution block. So this amount also included the construction of an ablution block.
Let's go to the first scope. Let's go to page 3. The scope of works for this project was substructure, blockwork, roofing, carpentry, joinery, ironmongering, metalwork, plumbing, electricals, flooring, walls, ceiling finishes, glazing, painting, decoration, and construction of an ablution block. To the total cost 622,933. According to this statement, it means the ablution block was within the contract sum of 622,933. If it was one contract.
Yes,
What is your
Chair,
comment?
it was one contract, and that is exactly the way it was.
And the
But
price was it?
was the same price which has been mentioned, 622,933. But Chair, from what we saw, just like the Honorable MP earlier mentioned, that we had a lot of projects that were approved from 2022 as well as 2023. So from the part of the contractors, they were not really focusing on the contract, money or something like that, because they were just interested in having the contracts, securing the contracts. And just like I earlier mentioned, from the engineering point of view, the department, I think, we were incapacitated. We didn't really have much, we didn't have staff that was able to make sure that the BOQs were adequately prepared. So most of the projects, Chair, that were implemented in 2022 were underfunded. And that's the reason why some of them were varied and some terminated and given to other contractors. So we had that serious problem in 2022. That's the reason why all the projects that were approved under 2022 were funded, were implemented in 2023. At the time I was joining, I found all the contracts being cleared by the Attorney General, and that was in January 2023. So all the projects were implemented in 2022, and we had those a lot of teething issues concerning the BOQs, as well as the quality of work also from the part of our contractors. I think that's what I can say. Maybe the engineer can also add.
Before the engineer comes in, the issue is this project was supposed to be completed in June 2023.
Yes, Chair.
And on November 17th, 2023, the procurement committee recommended for the termination of the contract, citing delays in delivery of the project. And when you terminated in November 2023, the provincial government officer only approved the project in March 2025, 17th March 2025. Why, what necessitated this long period? What was happening? March before coming here. And your CDF committee only met in March, knowing that you are coming here. You knew that you are coming, you had the CDF meeting. Now, to terminate, to get an approval of extra funding, double the price. Now, this project is going to cost about 1.3 million. What is happening at MBALA Council? Oh, that period. Planning is there. Procurement is there. It is not engineering. March 10th, that's when you said, let us now go to a CDF committee meeting. Then on the 17th, the PROJO signs. It means now it is now in under procurement. Even in procurement, this thing that we are seeing here, nothing is moving. This project will be implemented somewhere in 2026 or 2027 in MBALA, a project of 2023. Anyway, we can keep on and talking about, we can take even 2 days for these queries. If there is a mother of queries is in MBALA, we have beaten even these others, they're a problem. And when you look at this, then you question. Why do you even continue reporting for work? And if you continue reporting for work, what did you do when you report for work? Are you competent enough? Or this is deliberate, you are trying to bring down or to frustrate government? I'll also, Dr. Mwanza, a quick one before.
Just on the same project now, talking about the contract management, they had to look to source funds to cover the additional cost. And the Constituency Development Committee met on 10th March, just as you rightly put it, to say before coming to the meeting. So a CDF meeting was constituted on 10th March. We go to Appendix 3. Appendix 3, a meeting was convened on 10th March 2025 to talk about the project at Chisafa, which was awarded in 2022, 19th December. Then terminated in November, as you rightly put it, Chair. Then 2025, now 10th March, almost 1 year and some months, 2 years, close to 2 years. You sit down and so this was the on page 4 of the minutes. Page 4 of the minutes of the CDF committee meeting says the civil engineer produced an update on ongoing community projects for Chisafa Primary School, 1x2 classroom block, a 2022 project which had available funds amounting to 133,023 kwacha. These available funds are the savings from the termination. After they terminated the contract, so they had this amount. It was further reported that the project needed additional funding amounting to 697 and 26 kwacha. So the resolution where we're going to get the funding on page 5, page 5, Council decided to terminate contracts. 3 contracts. One at Mwambezi Chilino, which is a 1x3 classroom block. This project was funded in 2023, and they terminated the contract. After final accounts, they had 306 kwacha. And then Kawimbe Secondary School, Kawimbe Secondary, a 1x2 classroom block. The funding was for 2024. They made, after terminating, the funds, the available funds 140. Then it desk contracts. So they terminated some contracts for desk provision and made available some funds amounting to 708,000 kwacha. So the conclusion is that these funds are the ones that they used to apply to Chisafa, to complete the Chisafa, the 1x2. And the letter from the request for approval for additional funds to the PLGO is on the next page after the minutes. So they're justifying that Chisafa Primary School will be allocated 697.26 as additional funding, as additional to the available funding 133. So the total cost for this new contract at Chisafa is going to be 830 50 kwacha. And the source of funding is tabulated at there's no page number, but the next page. So now
you can wind up.
Yeah, so what is the rationale behind terminating existing contracts in 3 places. One at, I mentioned those schools. They were already under work in progress. Construction is going on. So they terminated, and the final account, the savings from that final account, they used that money to fund Chisafa primary school, leaving these other projects suffering. In fact, the conclusion is that these other projects like Kawimbe Secondary School, Mwambezi Chidino, and the desks of these projects will be considered desks of 300 in Itila, something like that. So these were terminated, and they are saying they will look for funding from 2026 to fund these projects that have terminated.
Not even 2025.
No, not 2025. 2026.
Town clerk, so what we hear from you? What rationale?
In terms of planning, you let one other community suffer, already contract occupied site, and they were constructing the Mwambezi Chidino Community School. Then you terminate the contract. The balance of the funds that remained there,
yes, Doc,
you took them to Chisafa, which is, the funding is highly questionable as to why you can fund Chisafa twice.
Town clerk, what is your reasoning, or what the rationale on these questionable transactions?
Thank you, Chair. Just like I earlier alluded to, we had a lot of issues in engineering department that caused...
These decisions, Town clerk, please. This has nothing to do with engineering.
Chair,
listen, were you following what he's saying? Yes, don't talk about that excuse, Town clerk, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the rationale for terminating the other contracts was based on the findings that were made through the engineers when they went through the projects. After the analysis, they made a recommendation that some of the projects be terminated. So I'll go project by project. So like for Mwambezi Chilino, the contractor abandoned the works, and we had no option but to terminate the contract. And then also the procurement of desks also defaulted, the contractor defaulted. But when we looked at the number of desks that were procured, they were adequate. So we met that presidential directive of no.
So you're confirming that MBALA district, MBALA constituency, all the children are sitting on desks.
Yes,
you have
Chair.
supplied adequate desks. The people of MBALA are listening and watching.
I can confidently say so, Chair.
Okay.
Because even the classroom blocks that are going to be constructed, we took that into consideration.
Okay.
Yes. So we had no option, Chair, but to cancel those projects. And then the Kawimbe 1x2, it came in as a disaster project. But the assessment that was done earlier was to have the roof replaced. But after a detailed assessment by the engineers, it was discovered that even the structure itself was not strong enough to hold the roof. So we had to recommend for termination so that we can fund it from the ground up to completion. So we were trying to look at funds that we could fall on to have the Chisafa and other projects completed, because the CDFC could not fund. We submitted those applications to the CDFC, but they rejected the funding of the project so that they could be completed. So if you look at the same minutes that we are referring to, I think I attended that meeting so that we could just convince the CDFC so that we could finish the projects that were not completed, especially that funds had already been committed. So that's where we came up with those.
How many projects were approved for 2024 or 2025?
For 2025, currently we have 9 projects that have been approved.
Okay. Now, I am not cutting you short. I think due to time, as it was area observed and said, this is the worst we have come across, and it's an indictment on all of you. It's not an issue of engineers. I think the work culture is where the problem is. The audit department is dead. Planning dead. All the departments are not functioning. Waste, finance. Here you have just also alluded to a fact that you had to vary monies from a disaster component to take it to Chisafwa. It confirms the area fear, the area indicators. Where you, and this you attended. How do you deal with disaster? The people of Visit Kawimbe had a disaster. A school is not there. You say you continue learning under a tree. We want to finance Chisafwa, which was area allocated about 600 something thousand. At that time, 600, over 600 would have sufficed to do this project. Because of the weaknesses, you couldn't do it. Now, it has been overpriced, going almost 1.5 million. Now, you are taking money meant for the vulnerable people of Kawimbe and the other area. And to tell this committee that, you know, we could cancel these desks because they were in excess, you had done an assessment, and these desks were needed. But because you want to justify, you had to vary desks. If these were excess, why did you provide for them? It was going to be wasteful expenditure. So, your justifications are not holding water. And I want to mention that the reasons that you have been advancing, that 2022 you couldn't do much because there was late release of grants or finances from the government. And I want to confirm this. It is not in order to come and accuse government because of your failures. I want to read these figures as you were receiving the monies. In this report, you have attributed your failures to government late release. That's why you could not do anything in 2022. 27 projects. Is it 27? 33 projects. We are not undertaking in 2022. You have said so because you had government delayed to send monies. That's why I'm saying that. Are you in another world? If MBALA is the part of this country and is one of the local authorities in this country, you were receiving monies. And we ask for this information. It has been given to us. I want to read it for you, Town Clerk. 2022 CDF allocation, funding received. The dates. On the 8th of February 2022, MBALA Council received 635,000. And this money was received by all the councils. I remember this. On the 1st of April 2022, you received 5,164,102. In the old currency, 5 billion. Now this is 5 million. 1st of April again, you received another allocation, same date. 634,592. And normally these they were sending for bursaries, if not mistaken. But I remember my council was telling me these funds were they were allocated to certain activity. 19th September is 19th August 2022. 19th August, you received, or councils received 732,540. 450, I mean. On the 13th of September 2022, all councils received 6,259,116.41. That is 2022. November 7th, 2022, all councils, including MBALA, received 6,434,978.40. 2nd December 2022, all councils received 3,879,671.07, including MBALA. Now, when you look at this, then you come, you want to shield and hide your failures and attribute your failures to government. You are being unfair. You are not sincere officers. You are a danger to the country. I can't hide. I can't say it any better. You are a danger to the nation. Those people who may not know will start accusing that this government is indeed true. It's not releasing monies. We received monies. Kaumbwe received. All the councils, 156 constituencies. So you come here as officers to come and mislead the nation. This information has come from yourselves. Here is another information for 2023. I can read it for the benefit of the people of Zambia. Let me read it. This is coming from MBALA, 2023. In May, on the May 12th, 2023, all councils received 3,222,784.83. 18th May, same month, 18th May, all councils received 2,687,126.25. In July, 28th July 2023, councils received 1,860,000. October 6th, 2023, 5 million to all the councils, including MBALA. I'm reading this from MBALA. 14th November 2023, 8,625,088.92. 30th December, 6,073,154.98. The same day, 30th December, 725,66,001. These are the monies. So do not fail. The failures of you are not at this committee. When you don't do anything there, when you are paying a school that is not supposed to be paid money, they are receiving money for bursaries. That's a failure. When you are giving loans to people who are not paying, you are shielding them, and nothing is happening. That is a failure. When you are failing to deliver any project, 33 projects in a year, you add even now the 2023 projects. How many were they? And how many have been implemented? Page 30. 31. Let's read. Page 31. You approved 22 projects, community projects, implemented 1. Work in progress, only 2 that were ongoing. Meaning 19 of them, there was nothing happening. Money is allocated. The people are expectant to see these projects. In certain countries, people would ask you, what's the moral value of having you in those offices? You are called directors, planning, engineering, town clerks. If you have such a report, our role as a committee is to highlight these issues. And we thank the Office of the Auditor General in all the provinces, including the headquarters, to continue exposing these failures. One day, right people will occupy these offices and this country will move to another level. We have never seen this political will where a government is determined to develop the country, but we have officers. Members of parliament are accused They are labeled that they are the ones who are causing these delays, when not. When they end up approving these projects, you officers, that is where now anarchy starts. It is not fair to this country. It is not fair to the people of MBALA. If you go to church, ask yourselves, you are committing sin against the people of MBALA. Denying the children who are vulnerable. You sponsor civil servants' children. And here is an auditor coming to justify that actually these children, they are just being kept, they are being given food and what. If I'm keeping my nephew, my niece, that is my child. In the Zambian tradition, we don't call them those names cousins. I keep them as my children. But you because you failed, you are an accomplice, you want to justify, no, actually, that civil servant said that they were just giving food and giving them shelter. Are you the one as an officer to go and see and start now looking at their relationship? Why didn't you pick the poor people? You are not fair. If you go to church, you are committing sin against your own country, your own government, and the people of MBALA. On moral grounds, I would appeal to you. Some of you should just write letters of resignation. We see if you have morals left with us as Zambians. With these remarks, I want to say that town clerk, that's a title that you are given. Live by the name. I know there's nothing that can change. It's a cultural thing. Immunity has been withdrawn. From now on, you are on your own. You go back there. One day someone will see what we are seeing. Thank you, Auditor General.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament Television. MBALA Municipal Council, that was led by the town clerk, Ms. Laura Mukanta. They've just made their submissions to the Committee on Local Government Accounts on the consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the Constituency Development Fund CDF for the financial year ended 31st December 2023. Just now we stand by for the second witness for today to appear before the Committee on Local Government Accounts. Keep watching Parliament Television. Good afternoon.